Hey VC, Mazzy here. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a long time. An overview of the Kinks. One of my top 3 bands. Those of you who have watched my channel for a while know that the Beatles, the Byrds, and the Kinks are my very favorite bands of all time. And doing a video on the Kinks can be overwhelming. Sure, I could break it up into parts. I'm not going to do different volumes. I'm going to do it all. And there'll be some little anecdotes maybe, but I just want to show my collection. And my collection is vast. By all means, not complete. It's probably complete musically, but in terms of pressings and things, I think my biggest section of records that I don't have that I wish I had, and I just kind of missed the boat, even though I'm from a time where I should have got those records, are the original UK Pi records from the 60s. So I don't have them. So I'm going to show records and CDs and a few other little goodies here. The Kinks, Ray Davis, Dave Davis, Mick Avery. Oh man, Pete Quaife. That's the original Kinks. So a lot of you know their music. A lot of you who are younger got turned on to some of their songs by other groups. I think didn't was it Van Halen? Who fucking did You Really Got Me? Everyone did it. But I'm not going to get into that. So here we go. I have mostly the Reprise early records, but here we go. So starting with the Kinks, You Really Got Me on Reprise Records. What's nice about my copies is they're pretty original, they're pristine. I don't have all of mono of everything. I have some mono, but maybe I'll just go them somewhat quickly, and we'll see it at that, you know. Kinda Kinks. 2 copies of Kinda Kinks. I got a Reprise mono and actually a Seal stereo that I got way back. This is my first copy by the Kinks of Kinda Kinks. Set Me Free, Dancing in the Streets. I mean, they were an R&B band. They were called the Ravens before the Kinks, and there's some rumors how they started as a band called the Kinks. They were kinky, their clothes were kinky, they wanted to shake things up and kind of shock the audience, which they did in terms of the tempestuous relationship between the Davis brothers, Ray and Dave, which I won't get into that much. But here, this is the original lineup right there. So you get a sense of who they are. Great songwriters. Again, R&B style. You Really Got Me, really changed things. It was, as you know, like a forerunner to the whole sort of punk and grunge and indie movement in a lot of ways. And they've had their ups and downs, but we're going to go through it. Anyway, their 1965 hits, Kink Size, and again, a stereo and mono version of this one. This had Tired of Waiting for You, which is one of my favorite Kink songs, of the early Kink songs, and All Day and All the Night, which was the other kind of guitar-based Dave riff that he did back in the day. And again, my beautiful original mono pressing right there with the beautiful original Reprise inner sleeve. You do know Reprise Records was Frank Sinatra's label, so it was really interesting how bands like the Kinks kind of were on it, but hey, they're making rock and roll. So tired of waiting for you. Again, stereo and mono, Kinks Controversy, and Well Respected Man is a great song on this one. Let's see, Wait Until the Summer Comes, See My Friends. I love that song. It's a beautiful song. They really changed it up because unlike a lot of the other bands, they were really getting into some really ballad and really beautiful songs about England. And the story is, and there's many versions of that, you know, they were on the sort of the first 1964 wave to America of the British invasion. I showed just one of their records on my British invasion videos. But then in 1965, when they were doing an American tour, American television, as the story goes, there was a big fight with Ray and some Union TV crew. Some say it was on a Dick Clark show, others say it was on some other show, and because of, and who knows the details, Ray basically punched out or tried to punch out someone who was in the Union, and for 4 years after the Unions of America, musician unions, banned the Kinks from performing live in America. So from 1965 to about till mid-1969, the Kinks never played in America, never toured like all the other bands. And some say that could be the reason why Ray started really kind of writing more in terms of, you know, not the love songs, not the rock and roll songs, not the bluesy, upbeat songs, but why he turned inward to Muswell Hill, where the Kinks were from, in North London, wrote about England, wrote about the suburban life of growing up in London, of, you know, the outer skirts of London or the northern London, and which we may never have gotten Sunny Afternoon. And Dandy, God. Dandy's, okay, again, stereo and mono. Dandy is a song that I didn't get this record right away. In my first experience, introduction to the song Dandy was the Herman's Hermits cover of it. But then, obviously, I went into this, and it's just a great, great, great song. And these records were actually produced by Shal Tamley, who's an American producer in England. But here's another copy of Face to Face, as a stereo copy. Let's take a look. I know you like seeing labels, don't you? Again, look at this beauty, right? Again, hey, I'm lucky to have these early Reprise pressings if I can't have the Pi, UK Pi pressings. I mean, you can have anything, right? Live Kinks, again, all the bands had live albums around this time, ironically, except the Beatles until the Hollywood Bowl after they split up. But they're not great records. They're not great live sounding records, and I can't recall if this one was overdubbed at all, like some of the Stones got Live If You Want It and some of the other groups at the time. Because as we know, live recording, especially with all the screaming girls, was not an easy thing to do. Okay, something else by the Kinks. Around this time, and I can't remember if it was this album or the album before that, they added to their recordings Nicky Hopkins on piano. And Nicky Hopkins, you may or may not know, was a great studio musician, but also a heavy, wonderful contributor to a lot of the great bands. Rolling Stones, George Harrison and John Lennon. He plays on Imagine. He played with the Jefferson Airplane, Quicksilver Messenger Service. He's at Woodstock with the Airplane. Played with so many artists. So he lived in the Bay Area for a long time, but played in London for a long time. And Nicky Hopkins really contributed a lot. And the other person who you never hear of, really, is Risa. Risa, if you noticed on a lot of these early Kinks albums, they were the only British band where you heard a woman singing. You heard female vocals on it. And that was Risa, that was Ray Davies' wife. Great, great singer on almost all the records in the early days, and was a fabulous addition to really kind of rounding off the sound of the Kinks in this middle and mid to late 60s. Really great. Then and Now and In Between. This is a promo record, basically a radio station record, never fully released, never commercially released to the public. Again, it's on Reprise. This goes into their next label of Reprise. I can already tell this is going to be a long video, so if you want to watch it in parts, won't be offended. If you need a 12-pack or one of those, go to Costco, get a carrier, or maybe like one of those giant gin bottles, that's fine too. God Save the Kinks, right? This is has medleys, and it has songs from 68, 69, kind of a radio station overview. And let's see, it talks about all their albums. It lists the Reprise albums. And by this time, and this, when did this come out? This is probably 69, I think this promo came out. So I'm a little out of order here, but it lists 10 albums that Reprise had already released by the Kinks. Very prolific band, but kind of a cool record to find. If you see this in any condition, grab it, because it's not easy to find and not cheap. Reprise did issue a greatest hits, and this is again my mono copy, still in the shrink, but it's my mono copy that I bought, again, on that wonderful Reprise label. So it's the old backhanded Mazzy presentation flip. I don't know if I invented that. I don't see many people doing it, and it's not that it's any big deal, but it just seems like the easy way, you know. Tell me, do you do that? Let's start a whole thing. It's kind of like do the Freddie, do the Mazzy. Then we start getting into a real fertile period. I mean, obviously, that kind of stuff is especially fertile. This album was not a hit when it came out. It was a mild seller. Not huge singles off it, although you know, we are the Village Green Preservation Society picture book. Do you remember Walter, Star Trek, Village Green, Animal Farm, Monica? I mean, a great record. This has become, like, you know, it's so easy to say the Kinks Sgt. Pepper or the Kinks Tommy. There's so many great things, but a lot of people cite this as their best album. It's one of my top 3 Kinks albums. It's not my favorite, but it's really damn close. And it's become the big, I don't want to say cult album, it's become the album that fans and other musicians later on from the you know, punk rock bands in the late 70s and early 80s to the post-new wave, to post-punk, to Britpop in the 90s. Everyone cites the Kinks and this album. Again, going back, I think the first album that really sort of personified the Kinks in a different way than You Really Got Me was Waterloo Sunset. But then, this is the album. And last year, 1968, celebrated the 50th anniversary of that, and of course, you know, the way they get to us, but it's still a wonderful collection. Andrew Sandoval and Ray Davies worked on this project, the box set, and the 50th anniversary. And what's beautiful about this, it's got the original album in stereo and mono, so it's a double record. Pretty much duplicates it, but it's got the stereo version and the mono version as a double. It's got the Swedish version of the album, which is a slightly different track listing, but it's wonderful. And it's got a huge, well, it's got a book with a huge, actually the book here, so much stuff here. It's one of those, oh, I'll show you in a second here. It's got, how many CDs? 4, 6 CDs? Can't remember exactly. Of outtakes and alternate things and different versions and the live version. And but the book, just to kind of give you a little overview, has great photographs, the history of the record, the history of their time working on it. And again, one of those records, in a way like Odyssey and Oracle, maybe by the Zombies, that really became big later on. Obviously, that had a huge hit single. But you know how certain albums just, they develop this cult status. But this is a wonderful collection. But, you know, it's very archival of when they do a big box set based on one album, opposed to, you know, a full catalog of artists. This also includes some reproduction 45s. Sunny afternoon. The Kinks, the Village Green Preservation Society. And then of course all the CDs, and you don't need to see empty CDs, and there's more photographs, more paraphernalia, more tchotchkes, as they say, ephemera. But when a band's your favorite group, right? And of course, you gotta have a poster. I need a PA. I need a PA to clean up all this stuff after and put it in order, make sure it's not destroyed. When you do these videos, when you pull a lot, are you having the same problem I do? It's all over. It's all over. You don't want to see this. Although, well, okay. Village Green. And then this year, 1969 to 2019, when I'm recording this video, Arthur, 1969. This is my favorite Kinks album. I don't know why, it just hit me at the right time. Victoria was the big single off it, which was pretty big in America. I don't know about the UK. But it wasn't a huge album either. It was basically almost like a mini, I have to say opera. That sounds so cliche, especially since that same year Tommy came out by The Who, and that really kind of trounced everything in sort of that rock arena of conceptual albums. But this album with Some Other Son, it was done for a BBC TV show, which I don't know if it ever actually came about. But this is coming out. There's a big deluxe package, again, put together by Andrew Sandoval, who is an archivist, did a lot of Rhino box sets and other labels. And this is coming out with him and Ray Davies putting out any time now. I think it's in a month or two. So we got that. Another edition of this. There were some reissues and mono reissues. I don't need to go through the whole thing. At the moment, this is one of the rarest Kinks albums to find originals of this, because this is Reprise, and for whatever reason, so far, even when the mono boxes didn't come out in mono anyway, that's why, but I'll show you the mono box too before this video is over. This just hasn't been reissued. Everything up to this has, and everything after this has, and for some reason, so if you find this, for the moment, it's basically one of the rarest, and again, it's this period Reprise, so that could be my later edition. I might have swapped the record out. When I worked in record stores, sometimes if we had a record that was funky, we'd bring it into the store and swap it out for a new LP, keep our old covers, keep the LP. There's a couple of collections I think I need to show here. Because at this point they were leaving Reprise Records. But they did put out two comps. One was a comp of mostly outtakes and singles and B-sides. And this is the Kinks, the Great Lost Kinks album. There was a song which was one of my favorites with my buddies called When I Turn Out the Living Room Lights, kind of a little humorous song. The Songbird, Groovy Movies, Lavender Hill, Till Death Do Us Part, Plastic Man. So different versions, different B-sides. A cool record to get, and really cool Kinks stuff. You know, Warner Brothers, you know how it is. You leave a record and they start repackaging your work. But at the time, I'd say if you see anything, get this, Kinks Chronicles. It really is a great overview, not necessarily a best of, although there are a lot of their greatest songs on here from the Reprise years and their early Pie years. But it's a double album. Again, great copy. The Kinks Chronicles has the usual rubbish Victoria, Village Green Preservation Society, Lola, David Watts, Dead End Street, Shangri-La, Sunny Afternoon, King Kong, Ape Man, Days. Days, I missed talking about that song. You know, it doesn't have, it has Waterloo Sunset, which is great. So, you know, if you can find one period record, I mean, obviously there are collections since, which you may see here, but this is a really good overview too. And I'll quickly go through the CDs that are a little different and a little expanded too. So I hope you're ready for this. The Best of the Kinks, this came out in the last couple years. It's a reissue, or basically a new comp. It sounds really good actually. I think it's digitally sourced, but it's got side 1 is mono remastered and side 2 is stereo remastered. So, you know, for a single collection, this is nice too. If you just want the real sort of primo 60s hits up through 1970, this is probably a good one. Okay, then the RCA happens. They moved to RCA Records in America, and they put out this album, which was at the time one of my favorites. Again, Muswell Hill is the area in London where they were from. This is a pub there that to this day Dave Davis still kind of frequently hangs out, apparently. And it's a great record. That's the pub. So if you're in London, I don't have the address, but you know, they were really mixing things up, adding horns, almost like a New Orleans country thing going with jazzy blues. I don't mean jazzy blues, but the New Orleans kind of rock feel was happening here. It's not overtly like that, but it kind of sounds that. And it kind of went on to a couple of the other albums I'm going to show. This is an expanded reissue with outtakes that came out on RCA about 3 years ago. 2-record set. It's got additional versions, which is kind of cool. And then I'm going to go out of order a little bit after that, but these 2 records, well, this one record, 2 versions of my record, an expanded 3-record set that has bonus tracks that came out about 3 years ago as well, and the original version on RCA. Now this I really latched onto when it came out in '72, I believe, on RCA, because it was 1 record live that had a lot of live versions of the Muswell songs, and then 1 record was studio recordings, which included one of the songs, at least in my area in San Francisco, got a lot of radio airplay, is Celluloid Heroes, which is a beautiful kind of haunting song about Hollywood. And you know, I walk down Hollywood Boulevard, that song. So the Kinks, Everybody's in Showbiz, really kind of nice record. So again, studio album and a live album mixed together. Okay, as a little break here as we go on until the Ray and the company gets a little more esoteric. 2 UK copies. This is a Pi version of Percy. This was a film soundtrack that Elkie Summer, Britt Eklund, Hywel Bennett, I don't know who that is. I guess he plays Percy. And Ray did this compositions, and you'll hear a lot of versions of Kinks songs done almost in a acoustic lo-fi manner. Songs like Lola, God's Children, Moments, Animals in the Zoo, and some kind of instrumental things. But it's a great, it's a cool soundtrack. So, Kinks or Ray Davies' Percy. And then another UK comp, I'd pick everything out. It's Golden Hour series that cram a lot of songs, 20 songs on 1 record. Of course, they're short songs. So I would say if you see it, pick up any Kinks album. Some of them are greater than others. More, I'd say the Reprise stuff. I happen to like the RCA stuff. I know a lot of younger people, or younger than me, which is people in their 40s and even early 50s, tend to love their Arista when they got into arena rock, which I like some of that, but for a while they got a little too generic for me. However, they sold more records than they did most of their career during that period, so you can't knock them. but they've got a little kind of generic big stadium rock things. But hey, you're a musician, you need to make money. Now, RCA probably didn't love where Ray was going with the Kinks during the next few albums, sort of 73 to about 76-ish. He started getting very theatrical, almost like mini operas about suburban England again. He's really kind of going to the inner Ray and the inner London period. I happen to love these records, and I saw them 3 times during this period. Had a blast. The opening song, chorus, morning song on this, it's just almost like a Walt Disney animation song you'd see with Snow White or Cinderella at the beginning of one of his 1930s, 40s animation things, and it just has a great feel to it. Daylight, Here Comes Flash, but I think they lost a lot of the audience that they had from their Warner Brothers Reprise years and Pi years with these albums. But I have a really big fondness for them, and I know them really well, and I listen to a lot. So that was Preservation Act 1, and then they go and do a double album, Preservation Act 2, more of it. Stories, a little bit of a narration, not really only like little bits of it, so don't let that throw you off. But I tell you, within these records, there's some genius. So sure, you could make a playlist, get the CDs, pull songs out, and have great songs, you know, amongst all the other overindulgence in a way. So RCA Records, I'm sure the accountants and the bean counters at RCA didn't appreciate that, because I think their sales really started going down. But one that I like a lot, and again, it didn't get a lot of love. I guess I got 2 copies here for some reason, so we'll see how that goes. But Soap Opera, and actually Soap Opera I think did better than a lot of the other ones. Everybody's a Star, which is kind of a great thing, and again, a fictitious story about this ordinary, dull, boring suburban guy named Norman who gets turned into a star overnight, a star, a celebrity. Ray was really into writing about that kind of stuff. So Star Maker, great song, Ordinary People, which I love. Have Another Drink. Holiday Romance is hysterical. You Make It All Worthwhile is my favorite song on the album. Very, very theatrical, almost like Broadway musical in a way. So I think a lot of people who are, you know, hardcore all day and all the night, You Really Got Me, Kinks fans, even Victoria, got turned off to this stuff. But I tell you, if you give it a little time, they're really gorgeous records. And then there's the Ducks on the Wall, which is sort of a campy, hysterical song. And You Can't Stop the Music and Face in the Crowd. Really good songs on this record, in my opinion. So, Soap Opera, Norman and the Star Maker. And then after that, another one where they get a little theatrical. And I saw them both these tours, Schoolboy and Disgrace. You just wanted to see that silly illustration. What the fuck are they thinking here? But Jack Dunce, the idiot. Jack the Idiot Dunce. I'm in Disguise, Headmaster. School Day. I mean, some great stuff on these. Every Kinks album, more or less, has some great things. But, you know, I think after this it was time to say so long RCA, or RCA was time to say so long Ray and Company, because that was it. But they soon got signed by the new label that Clive Davis from Columbia Records had started in the mid-70s, Arista Records. And I think Arista, I don't know all the details, my guess is gave him an ultimatum. I don't know how you give Ray an ultimatum. Basically, you want to make money? Do you want to sell records? And sell records they did, and tour they did. And it was a very fertile period. Again, some of the early 60s Kinks fans who just liked All Day, All the Night, Sunny Afternoon, that kind of whole period that I showed, maybe weren't into this as much, but these first two records especially are amongst my favorite. Great rock and roll, but there's some great thematic stuff still going on without the indulgent. Stripped down again to the 4 to 5 piece band, as I recall. Sleepwalker, Arista Records. Great, great cover package, right? I love this. But it's got that kind of like 70s vibe, right? So it's Mick Avery, Dave Davis, Ray Davies, and John Dalton on bass. And then also John Gosling kind of did some keyboards. They went through some personnel shifts and changes during this period. But I love this record. Life on the Road, Sleepwalker is great. Jukebox Music. So Life Goes On. So again, one of my favorite Kinks albums of that period, and not all in all. Even better of the two, in my opinion, is this record, Misfits. And of course, it's stuck in the, there we go, Misfits. And two songs in particular got a lot of AOR, which is album-oriented play. And that is Misfits and Rock and Roll Fantasy. Side one of this record, to me, is a perfect record. Perfect Kinks record for that later period, the Mazzy flip. So, Misfits. This was getting a time after this that the Kinks, in a way, were starting to lose me a little bit, because obviously punk was coming around and new wave was coming around and things, and the Kinks, instead of kind of going, even though they're influenced a lot of those bands, their stuff got to be a little more stadium, you know, heavier, not heavy metal, but straight arena rock, I guess I would call. And this was one that really typifies that. I Wish I Could Fly Like Superman, and it's got a little disco beat, in fact, as well. Catch Me Now I'm Falling, a little bit of emotion. So this is my DJ copy. I don't know if it's a white label promo. It might be. No, they weren't white labels. I don't know if they were doing white labels, Arista. But I did definitely get this from the Arista promo guy. I don't know if this came in the album or I stuck it in the album as a promo. You can tell me if that came in it. But you know, I like this album and everything, and there's some great stuff. I was getting tired of it. And I was almost saying goodbye to the Kinks, and especially in a lot of these albums now that I'm showing you, I didn't get till years later. Like I paid $3 for this one, probably in the last 10 years, from 1984. Word of mouth. Terrible 80s cover. Hate that cover. I don't even know what the fuck is on this album. What a mess of what a mess of an 80s cover. But that was a kind of a look, right? But I'm sure there's good stuff on here. I don't know. Again, the completist in me makes me own it. But I don't know. You know, forget it. I'm not going to say anything about that album. And there was a few of them then. Although, I don't know if I'm out of order, but I love, this is a 12-inch single I have, UK single, of Come Dancin' extended remix and Noise extended remix. So I still kind of, you know, latched on and did some Kinks stuff. I still was buying it. And then a live album, which was a big seller for them. Again, it showcased their arena rock thing. Wasn't one of my favorite periods, but you know, I've come back to this stuff and I enjoy it now. I had this record, and then I didn't have this record, and then I got it again. My new half brother, just a long story, gave it to me as a gift, which is kind of cool because I should have kept it. And for some reason, during my 90s purge, I got rid of it. I don't know why I got rid of this album, because it's actually a pretty good record. Okay. And then continuing on with the Arista, give the people what they want. Again, I think this was actually a pretty decent selling record. I kind of checked out here. Destroyer. Again, very give the people what they want. Very arena rock, back to the three chorus, but in the, you know, in the vein of the Van Halens of the world and that type of rock and roll that was very big in the late 70s. I really wasn't a part of that. I was into something more minimal or punk or new wavy thing, and that kind of arena, the hair bands and things like that wasn't my thing. And that's when Ray was, and Dave and the boys, and the different shifts and lineup of the Kinks were doing that kind of thing. I appreciate it. I appreciate it maybe more now than I did. And of course, several comps. This is actually a really good comp. For the Arista years, I would suggest this because it brings in some singles. It's got, you know, Misfits and Father Christmas, which is a great, great Christmas song. Great guitar in that. Alive, Cellular Heroes. Sleepwalker, Come Dancin', You Really Got Me, but live, Rock and Roll Fantasy, Jukebox Music. So this would be a good comp for the Arista years. And I'm going to end up, and I don't know if I think this is everything. I'm not going to end up the video, so you're not off the hook quite yet. They were signed to Columbia and put out this album. I hate this fucking album. I think it's a horrible record. I only have it because I'm a completist, and I don't know why I hate it. I think the songwriting is bad. And I don't hate any other Kinks records, and I don't know what happened here. What the fuck is that about? Cute. Okay, baby picture, great. Columbia Records, one album, out of here. They got dropped. I think they had a single too. And while we're talking singles, I hardly have any singles. I got rid of a lot of my singles there. Although I do have an original reprise of Sunny Afternoon. Yes, this is the wrong sleeve. That's an epic sleeve. I do have an RCA He's Evil and Mirror of Love, an RCA single. I do have a white label promo for Superman by the Kinks on Arista. Now this, as I said, Father Christmas. You need this song one way or another. One of the great rock and roll Christmas songs ever. It's great. They came out of nowhere. Like I paid attention when I heard this this holiday song. I love it. Okay, another single, Arista promo, basically. Kinks, Celluloid Hero, and Lola. I think it's live. It's from the live album. Nothing really interesting. And again, another shitty cover. Oh, they were on. Oh, I forgot. I don't have the MCA record. I think they did one or two. I don't have it. I need to get it for completion's sake. But I don't even remember it. So, you people, if you can tell me something about the MCA record. Now, this is kind of a fun promo. I think it was a promo, but I got it. Record Business Days. This Misfits. It has Rock and Roll Fantasy, Black Messiah, Misfits, Permanent Waves. So it's an EP. It's basically a square record. Square record in a round cover. How does that work scientifically? What would... this must be like sort of the Donald Trump science class. He must have figured this out, that you put a square record in a round sleeve. Here. To finish off the vinyl portion, I'm going to show you this. To me, this is essential if you got the money. If you don't want to hunt down all these individual LPs of the set, basically the 1960s LPs. Again, Sandoval and Ray Davis put this box together, and these are the mono records, and they're fabulous. I'm not going to show them all because it's basically the records you saw, the main records, with a lovely book. Bum, bum. I got a big fat mama, and it's got, as a bonus or an extra thing, this is called considered the Black Album, the Kinks. This only came out, I believe, in the UK or Germany. I'm forgetting right now. Should know this. Never came out in America. and it is an overview of a bunch of songs. Do you remember Walter Dandy Days, Animal Farm, Waterloo Sunset, Dead End Street, You Really Got Me? Like a greatest hits. Well Respected Man, Sunny Afternoon, Dedicated Flower of Fashion. I need to mention that song. What a friggin' great song. Now, I want an original copy of this, and I'm sure I can go on Discogs and find it. I'm sure it's pricey, but if you see this in a store anywhere, I mean, if you see it like this, that means someone ripped it out of the box. But if you see an original, pick it up, especially if it's a decent price, because it's extremely rare. So, but this box, the Kinks Mono Collection, if you have some money, and there, how's that work? If you have some bucks and want to splurge, I would say get that. Before I go on to the CDs, I'm just going to go through those really quickly. I need to do a shout out. Ray Davies had a number of solo albums, Ray Davis. This is a soundtrack he did, which is okay. You know, it's interesting. It's fun to have. He also did a song, kind of a cool song, on the soundtrack to Absolute Beginners. He also wrote several books, including these two. This is the one to get. They're very autobiographical. Ray Davis, X-Ray. I thoroughly, totally recommend this book. And what's great about this, there was a several-year period where I would see him 3 or 4 times live. But first he did a series of theater, a small, mid-sized theater tour. Him alone with one other musician would come out occasionally. And he would read passages from the book, play songs from the book, talk about the history of the Kinks and everything. And it was fabulous. There might be a video on it somewhere, I don't know, but highly recommended. And this is sort of more recent book, Waterloo Sunset. Quite the writer. But these 2 records, Americana Volumes 1 and 2, I love these records. The backing band on these 2 records are the Jayhawks, the wonderful kind of alt country indie band that is great. And they actually, they sing, they play, and Ray sounds great. He tells some of the stories within here, so there is some talking, but it's very minimal. But the songs are gorgeous. Songs are beautiful. So I don't care for these covers, but I highly recommend volumes 1 and 2. And to close out, I'm going to go through some CDs. Again, I've been saying if you want one thing, if you want 2 things, those of you that are just into comps, if you just want, single CD comps, there's the Essential Kinks, which is actually really good, and this really goes their entire career. Again, Andrew Sandoval sort of compiled this, remastered, of course, but it's really good and very extensive. This is just a selection of their BBB, sort of the best of their BBC sessions, 2 discs. If you want a more expanded overview on compact discs, this is the one to get. This is 5 discs jam-packed. Again, Sandoval put it together. It's got books and it's got an EP. In fact, I didn't show the EPs for Record Store Day EPs that came out, but this is really a wonderful collection of the Kinks. Going backwards, shake that camera. Going backwards, this is the complete BBC. Steady, Mazzy. God, I don't even know how many. It's got 5 CDs and a DVD, and this is extensive. This is the entire BBC collection. There's a bunch of these series of BBC collections from different artists that came out. This is amongst my favorite. Really, really good. But then there's a whole series of CDs. If you're a compact disc person, Universal put out, these are hard to come by now, I think. They did expanded of all their albums. Basically, each one has 2 CDs. The full album in stereo and mono, plus a lot of outtakes. Singles, B-sides, outtakes, things. So, again, for the Kinks, Completist with a K, Completist, K-O-M. Here we go. I don't need to really say any more about these. You can just see the pictures of them. My fave, Arthur. And then I think this is a limited edition. This might even been a promo. All it is a selection from some of their live songs from their live Arista years, I believe. Not essential. Remastered new track. This is a decent overview of their RCA years. So if you want those, I mean, there's so many Kinks things and comps. Kinks comps, K-O-M-P-S. You can get the songs of Ray Davies, Waterloo Sunset, another comp that mixes solo and Kinks. Now, after they split up, this is probably what I consider the last great or good Kinks album, and it's called Kinks Back to the Bone, and sort of a semi-indie release. Guardian Records, Conk Studios. Conk Studios is their studio they built in London that they own to this day still. And what's interesting about this, it's 2 discs. It's acoustic bass, so you could kind of call this the Kinks Unplugged, if you like. It is 1 disc of live at clubs, small venues, medium-sized venues, all acoustic, and then 1 disc of them playing live to a very small invited audience at Conk Studios. So like an Unplugged episode, you could kind of call it, like the MTV Unplugged thing. But it's really good. It's my last favorite thing. Now, Ray Davies also did the Crouch End Festival Chorus, the Kinks Choral Collection, which is, I think there's a video of this as well, where he plays about a dozen songs with a choral arrangement. Not essential, interesting, fun. But the Kinks, you know, I love this band. And there's so much to dive into. It can be overwhelming. You know, the Pie Reprise years are probably the essential years. You know, if you go into, those of you who are just more rockers, you probably like the very early and the Arista sessions, where they got to be a little more stadium anthem rock, which I think is interesting, but I think it lacks in subtlety and texture and nuances, although, you know, they made a buck, and that's what the audience want. Give the people what they want. I mean, that album title, I'm sure, was tongue-in-cheek by Ray, because, hey, he did it, he loved it, but, you know, I still like the RCA stuff better overall, and I'm probably in the minority there. So Mazzy's sort of overview of one of his top 3 favorite bands, the Kinks, and just buy their music, enjoy it. You know, it's wonderful stuff, right? They're one of the great. Ray Davies is one of the great songwriters of music and of popular music. You know, up there, right up there with Lennon and McCartney and Pete Townsend and Jagger Richards, kind of in that venue. I would say they exceed. They're better. He's a better songwriter than the Stones. He's a better songwriter than all of them except for Lennon and McCartney, and that's just my take on it. So, you know, Sir Raymond Davies of Muswell Hill, Neil, Mazzy loves you.